Hello everyone and welcome back to Blockbuster Reviews. So ladies and gentlemen, this week we're going to be reviewing a book which is the autobiography of Viola Davis. In this video we're going to be reviewing who Viola Davis is, what her accomplishments are like, what struggles she had to go through, how she achieved her fame, and how this autobiography measures up with the rest of the autobiographies that are out there. So let's get started. Now, first of all, we need to ask who Viola Davis really is. Viola Davis is a Hollywood actress who has risen to fame very slowly, struggling through life, as she explains in her autobiography. Viola Davis has done more than 57 movies, has more than $25 million net worth, and there are some very, very impressive things about Viola Davis. Now, we know that Viola Davis is not as famous as some of the other actors and actresses we know about, such as Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, we have Julia Roberts and Meryl Streep, but she is, her accomplishments are no less impressive than any of these people. Now, the first thing that we need to know about her is that we all know that there is something called an Oscar, which is the highest accomplishment that you can have in performing arts, but it relates to movies. So there is something which is even greater than an Oscar, which is what we call the Triple Crown of Acting. The Triple Crown of Acting is given to somebody who has won an Oscar, an Emmy, and a Tony. Where Oscars are given for movies, Emmys are given for television series, and Tonys are given for Broadway theater. This sort of makes a person a complete actor. Now, there are about 24 people in the world who have won the Triple Crown of Acting, out of which 15 are women and only 9 are men. And out of these people, only 11 are alive at the moment. But there is something, interestingly, which is even greater than the Triple Crown of Acting, which is called an EGOT, which is an Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony. These 4 things put together make you the complete artist. And it's very difficult to achieve all 4, obviously. There's only a very handful of people who have won all of these 4 accomplishments, and there's about 18 of them. There's 6 of them who have won honorary awards, but we're not counting them. Competitively, there are only 18 people who have won. And Viola Davis is one of them. She won her Emmy for the television series How to Get Away with Murder, which she won in 2015. She won her Grammy in 2023 for an audiobook narration of this book, her autobiography. She got her Oscar for Fences in 2017, and she has won 2 Tonys, one for Fences and one for King Hedley 2, back in 2010, and I believe it was 2002 or 3 years later, she won her second Tony. So this is how she won an EGOT. Now the question is there something greater than an EGOT? Yes, there is. There is something called a double EGOT, which only one person in the world has achieved. His name is Robert Lopez, and he is the songwriter of the very famous Pixar animation Coco, which he co-wrote with his wife. And very recently, he became the only person in the world who's won 2 Emmys, 2 Oscars, 2 Grammys, and 2 Tonys. So that makes him a double EGOT winner. But apart from him, nobody has ever been able to achieve this. And he's only 48 years old, so it's a remarkable feat. Okay, so let's take a little bit look at the book. This autobiography is very, very special for one reason, which is that, and if you read autobiographies, you will see that autobiographies can become very, very effective if they are able to offer you a experience of that time era, of that geographical region, and of that ethnicity and the discrimination that they were facing at the time, or the struggle that they were facing, in such clear, picture-perfect detail that you feel like you were living through that time, living through that geography, living through that, or part of that ethnicity which was facing their discrimination or that struggle. And this book aptly accomplishes all of these 3. Now, if you look at the autobiography of Gandhi, or if you look at the autobiography of Nelson Mandela, they very, very clearly explain what the region was like, what was happening in that geographic region, what that time era was like, what was going on around the surroundings at the time, and what struggles their ethnicity had to go through, particularly related to discrimination. So all these greats that have written these fantastic books have been able to accomplish what Viola Davis has been able to accomplish with this autobiography, and I highly recommend it. Now, anyway, so let's get down to reviewing the autobiography itself. The autobiography is basically split up into two parts. The first part is about her early life and her education and her struggle with acting, and after page 186, the book takes a turn and she starts talking about her professional life a little bit more, because that's when she really starts getting roles and starts, then you start finding out about the Hollywood scene and all of that. Now, there are four things that categorize her experiences throughout her personal journey and throughout her professional journey. Those four things are: number one, it is rape; number two is violence; number three, it is poverty; and number four, it is discrimination. So let's take a brief look at all four of these to see, what her experiences were like. The first three, poverty, rape, and violence, were more in her developing time of her life. Sorry. And the discrimination part was when mostly she experienced when she was in her professional life, but also some part of it was experienced when she was growing up. Let's start with poverty. Viola Davis belonged to a very, very downtrodden economic strata. Her parents were very, very poor. They were working people, but they were still very poor because blacks at that time did not have many opportunities to make it in life. It was a difficult time. Otherwise, also, it's back in the 1960s and 70s. She was born in 1967, and so she's had a very lived through very difficult economic time in her life. And the poverty that she has experienced could take different forms in her life and shaped who she was and how she was seen by others. Her family could not afford to buy soaps or detergents, and they couldn't afford heating, so she couldn't take care of her hygiene, because of which when she used to go to school, she was bullied, she was looked down upon. Even her teachers used to turn their faces away from her because she was smelling all the time. It was just a massacre out there. And also because of the poverty, she had a rat infestation problem in her apartment, which led to her developing the habit of peeing in her bed rather than getting up in the night and jumping through all those dangerous rats and going to the washroom, because in the dark you couldn't see the rats. So she developed this chronic problem of peeing in her bed and wetting her clothes rather than going to the washroom, and couple that with the problem of not having soaps and detergents, and the lack of hygiene, and she was just basically, there was stench coming from her all the time, and she was treated like that by others. The second thing was that she experienced was rape. This was not something that she experienced herself till she had grown up. This was something that happened in the apartment, in her own apartment, in fact, and very shockingly by her own brother. There were four of these sisters, and there was one brother, and the parents had gone out of the house, leaving the brother in charge of the girls. Viola Davis's brother had already gone into his early teens, and he was curious about sex and everything. And he one thing led to another, and he started chasing two of the sisters. They couldn't outrun him, and then he had penetrative sex with both of the sisters against their will. Viola Davis says that she herself was touched by him, but he did not violate her to that extent, and she had another sister who was also touched by him. The real experience that she had of rape, which she doesn't use the word in the book, but that's the experience that she had, was when she had gone into her sort of 20s, or when she was grown up. She was dating this man by the name of Carl. It wasn't a very long relationship, but it had quickly gone into a passionate physical relationship. And so what happened was that she basically wanted to break up with him, because she felt it was like a toxic relationship where she was just at the giving end and he wasn't doing anything. He wasn't reciprocating in the same way. So she went to his house one day and told him that she wanted to break up with him. but he forced her to take her clothes off and then start having sex. The problem was that she was having her periods, so it was completely against her will to do that, but she just sort of submitted to her will. Um, it just kind of reminds you of the Harvey Weinstein, thing. Could you call it a rape? Could you not call it a rape? But he put the other person in a position where she could not say no. So yes, I would call it a rape. And the third thing was the violence. The violence that she had seen was in her own home and was done by her own father to her own mother. Her father was a very, very physically brutal man, and she explains that one day he took a glass bottle and smashed the bottle onto her mother's head, and then one day he took a pencil and he stabbed her neck with that pencil. One day he split her entire arm open. He beat her so violently. And it was very, very often for him to do this. In the night, he would start beating her with some kind of a wooden plaque or something on her back. And he would keep beating her all night. And all of the children would hear screams and wailing and crying for help from their mother. They could not do anything because they're very young. But that's how he used to brutally beat his wife, especially when he was under the influence of alcohol. The fourth thing was discrimination that she had faced. Discrimination was in her early years was out of the fact that she was black, and the whites used to look down upon the black community at the time. They had been given civil rights, but still there was this whole discrimination problem was going on, which to be honest is still going on to a great extent. But at that time it was a little bit more pronounced, and also she faced discrimination when she went to Juilliard. Now this is really, really interesting. She talks about the entire environment and the approach of Juilliard, and how their professors and teachers used to try to create that European white standard of acting and roles. And she said that she did not fit into that standard or into those roles, and this was a very big problem because she was completely black, and she just couldn't pass herself off as a white person or doing a white role. She had to have a specific kind of role which was suited to her ethnicity. And Juilliard did not really sort of they didn't really push very hard to create that diverse environment where people from different ethnicities could thrive. And there were other people who, like her, from other ethnicities apart from being the standard white ethnicity, and they were also facing the similar problem in Juilliard. Eventually, she wrote to Juilliard and she told them that that she wanted to find herself, and so she was awarded a scholarship with which she went to Africa, traveled there, and she got in touch with her roots, and she really found herself there, which she brought into her acting. So this was the four areas which she broadly talks about this poverty, rape, violence, and discrimination. And I feel that as a book, it doesn't flow. The writing doesn't flow as smoothly as some of the other autobiographies I've read. For example, if you read Helen Keller's autobiography, it flows very smoothly. It's very rich, very powerful. Sometimes she's just going to create a lot of suspense, and then she's suddenly going to change the subject, or it's just she can't handle the suspense over there. It's a problem with people who are not professional writers, so you can spare her that. But what she has lost in her ability to write very prolifically, she more than covers with the emotional intensity that she offers in this book. I highly recommend this book. It's a 9 out of 10. You must read this book. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for this week, and we'll see you later.